When my third blind date failed, I finally knew Julian was behind it. Everyone in the city called him a gentle and refined gentleman of the business world. Only I knew he was a wolf in sheep's clothing who ruined all my romantic prospects. I marched straight to his company, slammed a prenuptial agreement on his desk. Mr. Julian, you didn't want me to marry anyone else, right? Fine, I'll marry you. He leisurely took off his wire-rimmed glasses and smiled. My wife, I've waited 3 years to hear you say that. I, Mia, a former heiress, now a bankrupt socialite, whose highest ambition in life was to be a couch potato whose only goal was to live off others and do nothing. But my family's not-so-small company, thanks to David's relentless efforts, successfully teetered on the brink of bankruptcy. Consequently, my life goal was reluctantly adjusted from living off others and doing nothing to finding a reliable meal ticket and continuing to live off others and do nothing. However, this simple wish was brutally cut short by 3 failed blind dates. And it was all that darned man Julian's fault. Financial magazines praised him to the heavens, calling him a gentle and refined gentleman of the business world, and a Midas touch investor of unparalleled virtue. Bah! Only I knew this guy was a complete hypocrite. A wolf in sheep's clothing. A manipulative schemer. All 3 of my blind dates were ruined by him. The first time, David introduced me to the son of an old army buddy, an honest, straightforward programmer. Though a bit of a homebody, his income was stable, and his personality was simple, clearly the type I could easily manage. We had just exchanged text messages at the cafe when Julian just happened to pass by. He walked over, looking perfectly polished in a custom-tailored suit, greeted me gently, and then casually mentioned to my blind date, Mr. Tom, isn't it? I hear your company's project has core code that seems to highly overlap with a Register D patent from an overseas company. It's set to launch next week. Truly commendable courage. The programmer's face instantly turned ashen, and his hand trembled, nearly spilling coffee on himself. He immediately made an excuse about an urgent company matter, fled in a panic, and never replied to my messages again. The second time, I took an interest in a young lawyer who ran his own law firm. He was an elite type, just a bit tight on funds in the early stages of his startup. No problem, even though my family was close to bankruptcy, even a struggling empire has more resources than a nascent startup, I could subsidize him. Sarah had just arranged a simple dinner for us, and the very next day, the lawyer happily landed a major cross-border MA case. The client required him to be based overseas for at least a year. Apparently, Mr. Julian of the Jiang appreciated young people's drive and personally recommended him, dubbed Expanding International Horizons. The third time, a department manager from David's company, who had a slight interest in me, was sincere and quiet. He said he didn't mind my family's situation and was willing to work hard together. I thought he was quite reliable. Julian was even more extreme this time. At an industry summit, in front of potential investors for my family's company, he casually remarked, Mr. Robert is quite capable, but his vision is a bit limited. The market needs pioneering talent like him, it's a shame to bury it in a small company. Upon hearing this, the investor's eyes lit up and he immediately offered Mr. Robert a 3-times salary offer, sending him off to develop the vast African market. He was packed and on a plane the next day. Me! Exclamation point. Julian, you're just messing with me. I was so furious I pounded 3 throw pillows to shreds and devoured 5 boxes of imported chocolates at home. My best friend, Chloe, looked at my dark circles and carefully ventured, Mia, maybe. Just let it go? Mr. Julian might, possibly, proba. Bly. Just be concerned about you? I bit through my chocolate bar fiercely, concerned my foot. He's insidious. He's cunning. He just doesn't want me to get married. But why? I, Mia, am neither a business prodigy nor a peerless beauty. I'm just a somewhat attractive couch potato whose family is about to go bankrupt. What nerve did I strike with CEO Julian? Unless. An absurd thought popped into my head. Could he want to marry me? I burped, startled by my own idea. Impossible. Absolutely impossible. Who is Julian? He's young, at the helm of a business empire, a darling of major financial media, and the dream-eligible bachelor for all the socialites in the city. He'd be interested in me? My laziness? My appetite? Or my family's impending bankruptcy? But besides that, there's no way to explain his actions of ruthlessly mowing down all my romantic prospects. Fine, Julian, if you're going to be heartless, don't blame me for being unjust. You like to meddle, do you? Fine, no more blind dates for me. I'll just marry you. Let's see how you mess with that. I'm taking a gamble. The 4th time at a high-end business summit. I dug out Sarah's prized Chanel suit, meticulously dressed up, and sneaked into the venue. My eyes like searchlights, I locked onto the man surrounded by a crowd, radiating nobility, smiling with an air of nonchalance. Julian was chatting amiably with several bigwigs, his profile perfect, his demeanor utterly refined and gentlemanly. Pfft! What an act! Keep acting! During the free networking session of the summit, the atmosphere was relatively relaxed. I took a deep breath, clenched my fists, and, under the gradually quieting gazes of the entire room, walked straight to the front of the venue and picked up a spare microphone. Mr. Julian. My voice echoed through the entire venue via the microphone, clear, loud, even with a slight crack as if I were going to my death. Instantly, all conversation ceased, the soft music also stopped, and countless eyes fixed on me like spotlights. I suspected if David were there, he'd have a heart attack on the spot. Julian turned around, his usual gentle smile visibly freezing for a moment when he saw me. I threw caution to the wind. Facing the microphone and Mr. Thompson at the main table, I plunged. Not to my knees, but into a deep bow, my voice trembling but utterly clear. Mr. Thompson, esteemed seniors. I am Mia of Shen. I have admired Mr. Julian of Jiang for a long time, and I boldly ask you all to bear witness. I am willing to marry Mr. Julian. Please, Mr. Julian, give me a chance. A deathly silence. I could almost hear countless jaws dropping to the floor. Tomorrow. No, tonight, I would make headlines on both the financial and gossip sections. Shocking. Bankrupt Mia publicly to business Julian at Summit. Mr. Thompson, the white-haired elder, was clearly bewildered too. He held his teacup, staring blankly for several seconds, looking at me, then at Julian, whose face had completely frozen. Suddenly, Mr. Thompson clapped his hands and burst out laughing. Ha ha ha. Excellent. I've lived for so many years, and this is the first time I've seen such a candid young woman in this setting. Marvelous. Truly marvelous. He, enjoying the spectacle, excitedly turned to Julian. Julian, what do you say? I think Ms. Mia here is commendably courageous, and with your gentle nature, you'd complement each other perfectly. All eyes in the room instantly focused on Julian. Our Julian, a man known for his composure even in the face of disaster, now stood slightly rigid, his perpetually gentle smile completely shattered, beyond repair. He looked at me, his shock almost tangible, his brain's CPU must have been melting. I burst out laughing internally. Ha ha ha. Julian. Stunned, aren't you? Didn't expect this, did you? I'm directly attacking the core. His thin lips moved slightly, as if to say something. Mr. Thompson immediately interjected, making a final decision, since didn't object. Oh. And the spot, does that mean he's consenting? What good news? I, an old man, will take the liberty today to be your witness. Congratulations, Mr. Julian, congratulations, Ms. Mia. This marriage is set. Julian's Adam's apple bobbed, and he finally found his voice, speaking with great difficulty. Thank you for your kindness, Mr. Thompson. His voice carried a hint of gritted teeth. I felt utterly satisfied. My second bow was louder than anyone else's. Thank you, Mr. Thompson. Straightening up, I shot Julian a defiant glance. Didn't expect this, did you? You played yourself, didn't you? You trapped yourself, didn't you? He received my gaze, and the shock in his eyes slowly receded, replaced by a complex, unfathomable depth. Did the corner of his mouth curl up almost imperceptibly? An illusion. It must be an illusion. Over the next month, David and Sarah were in a state of dreamlike panic, like a pie falling from the sky, but perhaps an iron one, and this pie was forcibly snatched by their own daughter. The entire city was buzzing about my astonishing proposal, with 18 versions circulating. The mainstream theory was that I had put a spell on Julian. The proposal, astrological compatibility check, engagement, the process moved at lightning speed, unlike a high society marriage, more like Mr. Julian's whirlwind wedding, though I was the one who snatched him. Finally, it was our wedding night. With a head heavy with jewelry, wearing a pricey but restrictive custom-tailored wedding gown, I sat on the oversized couch in the spacious bridal suite, hungry enough for my stomach to stick to my back. Tucked into my wedding gown was a USB drive, secretly delivered by Chloe. Footsteps sounded outside the door, steady and clear. My heart inexplicably skipped 2 beats. The door opened, and a faint scent of wine mixed with cool cedar drifted in. Julian, dressed in a crisp black suit, looked tall and elegant, with less of his usual aloofness and more of a worldly charm. He strode over, stopping in front of me, a teasing smile in his eyes, his lips curved. Mrs. Julian. He spoke, his voice carrying a hint of wine-induced lazy hoarseness. Your summit proposal truly caught your husband off guard. I looked up, flashing him a toothy grin, devoid of any bashfulness of a new bride. No rush, honey. Then, under his gradually freezing gaze, I abruptly pulled the long-prepared USB drive from a hidden pocket in my wedding gown, smoothly inserted it into the ready laptop, and connected it to the home theater. Click! The projection lit up, and a beautifully designed PPT cover appeared on the wall. Proposal for explanation and punishment: Mr. Julian's interference in Ms. Mia's blind. I held the laser pointer, the red light dotting the giant title, and clapped my hands. Tonight, you'll be caught off guard. Like it? I prepared it especially for you, dynamic effects, detailed visuals, and explanations that could last all night without repetition. The smile on Julian's face once again, successfully, froze. He looked at the PPT on the wall, then at me, who clearly thought I won. In those black eyes, always holding endless depths, for the first time appeared clear, undisguised astonishment. Only the faint whirring of the projector remained in the room. He was silent for a moment, then suddenly let out a low chuckle. It wasn't his usual gentle, detached laugh, but a genuine laugh that rumbled from his chest, tinged with helplessness and more amusement. My wife. He raised a finger to the projection screen, raising an eyebrow at me. What crime has your husband committed to warrant such a trial on our wedding night? Still acting? Still pretending? I put my hands on my hips, clicked open the next PPT slide with the laser pointer, and began to enumerate his crimes in a loud voice. First, programmer Tom. A cartoon image of Mr. Tom fleeing in a panic appeared on the PPT. Julian raised an eyebrow, frankly admitting, a tech homebody, poor St. Rest tolerance, and his company indeed had patent risks. Not a good match. Second, lawyer Daniel. The PPT switched to an animation of a plane flying overseas. In the early stages of his startup, he was preoccupied. Marry him to share his debts? Wouldn't my wife be tired? Third, department manager Mr. Robert. The PPT showed images of the African savanna and lions. Stationed overseas indefinitely, when would he return? Does my wife wish to become a widow? Or dance with lions in Africa? He spoke clearly and articulately, arguing as if every decision was thoughtfully made for my benefit, turning the PPT into his accomplice. I was so exasperated by his twisted logic I nearly gasped for air. That's still no reason for you to meddle secretly. He took a step forward, closing in on me, his pleasant cedar scent mixed with the smell of wine enveloping me. Then, my wife, what do you suggest should be done? The projector light flickered on his face, hiding undercurrents I couldn't comprehend. I instinctively took a step back, my neck stiff. What does it matter to me? You ruined my 3 chances at marriage, so you have to accept punishment. Copy this PPT 10 times tonight. He chuckled lowly, taking another step closer, almost close enough for our breaths to mingle. But my wife has also ruined my reputation, hasn't she? After your summit proposal, now the entire business world knows I, Julian, am henpecked. If our stock drops, will my wife take responsibility? His breath brushed my forehead, feeling a bit warm. My heart inconveniently began to pound again, but I tried to keep my composure. Then are we even? Even? His voice rose at the end, seductive, and he suddenly reached out, took the laser pointer from my hand, and turned off the projector. The room instantly plunged into a soft, intimate dimness. My wife, the night is too short. His gaze fell on my lips, his intentions clear. All the hairs on my body stood on end. I abruptly raised my hand to push him away, my heart pounding like a drum. What are you trying to do? The PPT hasn't been copied yet. Julian gracefully let go, his gaze returning to the dark screen. He rubbed his chin, seemingly deep in thought. A moment later, he looked up at me, his eyes suspiciously sincere. My wife, could this matter be discussed later? As compensation, tomorrow I'll take you to that newly opened Michelin-starred restaurant. Their signature chocolate lava cake is said to be mind-blowing. Me! Exclamation point. How did he know I'd been craving that place for ages? David thought it was too expensive and absolutely refused to take me. Damn it. My heart was tempted. But I couldn't abandon my principles. I stifled my drool, straightened my face, and pointed at the laptop. Don't think you can corrupt me with your sugar-coated temptations. You still haven't explained why you ruined my blind dates before. He sighed, his expression actually a little aggrieved. Does my wife truly not know? What am I supposed to know? Riverside, 4 years ago. He reminded me slowly. I froze, my mind rewinding quickly. 4 years ago. Riverside. I think there was an incident. My family hadn't gone bankrupt yet. I went to a party, got bored, and snuck off to ride a horse. The horse got spooked and nearly threw me down a hillside. That young man who passed by? I suddenly remembered, the one wearing a mask and a baseball cap, only his eyes showing? At the time, that young man looked slender, but he was quite strong. He managed to rein in the spooked horse and pull me down, not saying a word even after spraining his wrist. I was in a hurry to get back, fearing a scolding, so I casually handed him a company promotional item, an empty USB drive with an ugly cute logo, as a thank you, and then I ran off. Later, I sent bodyguards to look for him, but he was gone without a trace. Julian slowly pulled something from the inner pocket of his suit. A very cheap-looking USB drive with a faded, ugly logo. The token of affection my wife gave me. I've kept it safe all this time, he said, looking at me with deep eyes. Me. Oh my goodness. He actually kept that old USB drive? And called it a token of affection? At the time, I simply had nothing else on me and just fobbed him off casually. So you set your sights on me? My voice trembled. Yes, he nodded, looking completely nonchalant. Since my wife proactively gave me a token of affection, naturally, I waited for my wife to grow up and come marry me. Who knew my wife's family would fall into decline, and she would start going on blind dates with such enthusiasm, completely forgetting her old acquaintance from the stables. Your husband, therefore, had no choice but to use a few minor tricks to prevent my wife from marrying the wrong person. I almost spat out a mouthful of old blood. A few minor tricks? Ruthlessly mowing down all my romantic prospects until not a blade of grass remained, and he called that a few minor tricks? Also, who gives a company promotional USB drive as a token of affection? Top marks for reading comprehension, Mr. Julian. You. I pointed at him, too angry to speak. He closed the laptop, his smile soft. My wife, it's late. Let's rest and recharge, so you can enjoy your cake tomorrow. Chocolate lava cake. I glared at him indignantly for 3 seconds, then snatched the laptop. A gentleman's revenge is never too late. First, let's have that cake. At the Michelin-starred restaurant, I attacked the exquisite chocolate lava cake, which looked like a work of art, with all my might, my eyes half closed in bliss. Julian sat opposite me, slowly savoring his red wine, occasionally handing me a napkin, ostensibly to mind my image. What are you looking at? I mumbled, licking my spoon. His gaze made me feel completely uneasy. Watching my wife eat is quite interesting, he smiled. It's much more pleasant than looking at boring financial reports. I snorted, deciding to ignore him, and buried myself in my work. Just as I was happily eating, Ryan, Julian's assistant, approached quickly, his face grim, and whispered a few words in his ear. My ears perked up, catching the words Shen, financial irregularities, and SEC. My heart sank. Shen? My family's failing company? What trouble now? Julian's smile faded, and he put down his wine glass. What exactly happened? Ryan glanced at me, hesitating. Just say it. Julian's tone was calm. Yes. Mrs. Julian's family company's CFO, Paul, suddenly reported them to the SEC this morning, accusing Shen of massive financial fraud. He provided several technically processed emails and account screenshots as evidence. The SEC has decided to open an investigation, and Mr. David, your father-in-law, has been asked to cooperate with the investigation and is temporarily not allowed to leave the company. The spoon in my hand clattered onto the plate with a crisp sound. Uncle? He's David's old subordinate. How could he possibly? I jumped up abruptly, exclaiming anxiously, someone must be framing him. You know David, he's very timid. Fraud? He even complains for ages if the company accounts overreport $10 for a taxi ride. Ryan finally looked directly at me, a troubled expression on his face. Julian raised a hand, gesturing for me to calm down. His face was serene, showing no emotion, as he asked Ryan, based on initial assessment, how credible is the evidence Paul provided? On the surface, the format and signatures of the emails and accounts highly match Shen's previous records, Ryan said in a low voice. Even a match can be forged. I cried out, grabbing Julian's sleeve. Someone must have bribed him. David is being made a scapegoat. Julian lowered his eyes to look at my chocolate sauce-stained hand clutching his expensive suit cuff, but he didn't pull away. He gently patted the back of my hand, his voice steady. Don't panic. He turned to Ryan, giving several clear, concise instructions. He ordered him to investigate Paul's recent bank statements, social connections, the original source of the evidence, and potential competitors behind it. He was terrifyingly calm and collected. Ryan nodded and hurried off. My mind was in turmoil. Watching him calmly drink his wine, having reverted to his unfazed demeanor, I couldn't help but snap, "Hey, that's my father. Think of something." He put down his wine glass, looked up at me, and suddenly asked, "My wife just married into the Jiang family yesterday, and your father-in-law had trouble today. Don't you think it's too coincidental?" I froze. "What do you mean?" "Someone couldn't sit still," he said, a cold, fleeting arc forming on his lips. Then he smiled at me again. "Don't worry, your father will be fine." He took out a clean handkerchief, pulled my hand, and meticulously wiped the chocolate sauce from my fingertips, bit by bit. After all, one doesn't punish the dog without considering its owner. Me. That analogy sounds so strange. So what now? We wait. He finished cleaning my hand but didn't let go, his fingertips brushing my palm almost imperceptibly as he smiled like a fox. "By the way, shouldn't my wife fulfill the unfinished business from last night?" My internal alarm bells instantly went off, and I tried to pull my hand away. What business? Was my service to my wife satisfactory last night? He leaned closer, lowering his voice, his breath brushing my ear. "Can that PPT be excused?" My face instantly flushed. "You scoundrel. My father is about to be invited for a chat by the SEC. And he's still thinking about the PPT. Dream on." I forcefully pulled my hand away, my heart pounding, trying to keep my composure. "One thing at a time. If you can't handle David's situation well, I'll make you copy DOS 10 times. He didn't get angry at my words. Instead, he chuckled softly, his eyes incredibly bright. "When my wife gets feisty," he said slowly, his pleasure undisguised, "I find it cute." You'd agreeable. Julian, that scoundrel, certainly kept his word. In less than 3 days, David, my timid father, actually emerged from the SEC investigation completely unscathed, and the company's crisis was temporarily resolved. When the news came back, I was holed up in the enormous home theater at Julian's mansion, munching on imported chips and pondering whether to make Julian copy the PPT or the contract law. Chloe burst in like a whirlwind, panting, her eyes wide. Mia. Uncle is fine. The company is fine too. I heard Mr. Julian directly obtained a chain of evidence regarding Paul's secret meetings with executives from the rival Horizon, his acceptance of massive bribes, and their technical records of forging electronic evidence. This morning, Horizon's stock price hit its daily limit down, and Paul and that executive were both taken away. My chip got stuck in my throat, and I coughed uncontrollably. Horizon played dirty? Paul was taken away? I patted my chest, incredulous. Horizon was a significant player in the industry. Julian just ripped a hole in them like that? Absolutely true. Chloe nodded vigorously. Now everyone in the circle is talking about Mr. Julian's swift and decisive action. He doesn't strike until he has to, but when he does, he strikes at their Achilles heel. Horizon would either collapse or suffer severe losses this time. Everyone says David received a blessing in disguise, and no one in the business will dare to easily mess with Shen again. I listened, stunned. So not only rescued my father but also effortlessly beat up the mastermind behind the scenes until they were practically incapacitated? That efficiency was a bit terrifying. His words that day at the restaurant, "One doesn't punish the dog without considering its owner," weren't an analogy after all, but a statement of fact. Whoever messes with someone under his protection, he chops off their paws? A mix of emotions swirled within me, a bit of fear, but also a sense of security. When returned to the mansion that evening, he was still in a crisp suit, calm and composed, as if he had merely attended a meeting, rather than just stirring up a storm in the business world. He noticed me, for the first time, sitting on the living room couch, with a plate of washed, glistening imported cherries in front of me. His eyebrows arched slightly, seeming a bit surprised. "My wife has such leisure today to wait for her husband to return?" He walked over and naturally sat beside me. I picked up the largest, reddest cherry and held it to his lips, trying to make my expression look sincere and sycophantic. "You must be tired, honey. Have a cherry?" He lowered his gaze to the cherry at his lips, then looked up at me, a faint smile flashing in his eyes, and took the cherry from my hand. His cool fingertip accidentally brushed my lips, and I instantly recoiled as if burned. "Is it sweet?" I asked stiffly. "Acceptable," he swallowed slowly. "Slightly less sweet than my wife's concern." There he goes again. I cleared my throat and got to the point. About David's situation, thank you. Part of my duty," he replied plainly. "My wife needn't worry." Then, the PPT. I probed cautiously. My little internal abacus was clattering. Seeing as you did a good job, maybe I could offer a discount? 5 copies? He suddenly turned sideways, facing me, his expression becoming a bit more serious. Mia. My heart skipped a beat. He rarely called me by my full name. Every time he did, it meant trouble. Although this matter is resolved, the business world is like a battlefield, and many people are watching Jiang and me. His voice lowered slightly, the light from the crystal chandelier flickering in his deep eyes. You are now Mrs. Julian, so such underhanded tactics will likely be common in the future. Today it was your father-in-law, tomorrow it might be your mother, or even you yourself. My breath hitched. I hadn't thought about that. Marrying him meant stepping into the eye of the storm. Scared? He observed my expression. Who's scared? I straightened my back. Am I the kind of person who's afraid of trouble? He chuckled, reaching out to gently wipe a bit of chip dust from the corner of my mouth with his thumb, his movements natural and intimate. Indeed, my wife is the boldest. He took a plain-looking black card and a small, elegantly shaped car key, for a Bentley, from his suit's inner pocket and placed them in my hand. Take these. Always carry them. What are these? An upgraded token of affection? I held the card and the key. The car key had a winged bee logo, which I didn't recognize. You could say that, he smiled. The card has no limit, swipe freely. The car is custom-made, armored, with bulletproof glass that can withstand small explosions. The GPS system is linked directly to my phone and security team. If you encounter an emergency, press the red button on the steering wheel. My hand trembled, and I nearly dropped the key. An unlimited black card? An armored car? These weren't gifts, they were life-saving tools. I abruptly looked up at him. His expression remained calm, as if he had just given me a piece of candy. So, he had already anticipated danger? Is that why he? My small triumph about the PPT instantly vanished, replaced by a heavy, anxious feeling. Julian, I clutched the card and key tightly, my throat tight. How many enemies have you actually made? He leaned in, his forehead almost touching mine, our warm breaths mingling, his voice so low only I could hear. Not too many, not too few. Just enough to ensure my wife's lifelong prosperity and just enough to give my wife an occasional thrill. His eyes held a smile, a deep meaning I couldn't decipher, and an imperceptible indulgence. My heart skipped a beat. Oh no, oh no, oh no. I think this old fox might have just charmed me a little. No. Mia. Stay strong. This is a sugar-coated temptation. It's a high-level tactic. I abruptly leaned back, creating distance, clutching the card and key tightly in my hand, and stubbornly declared, Who wants thrills? I just want to peacefully eat my cake. He chuckled softly, sat back, and picked up another cherry, gracefully removing its stem. All right, tomorrow I'll take my wife to try another dessert shop. Something felt off. I was supposed to discuss a discount for the PPT, but somehow he had talked me into getting a black card and an armored car for free, and even scheduled our next dessert outing? I looked at his nonchalant expression and belatedly gnashed my teeth. Mr. Julian's tactics were indeed impossible to guard against. However, before I could embark on my grand, peaceful dessert-eating endeavor, trouble genuinely came knocking. A few days later, Julian, as a business leader, naturally had to attend a high-end charity gala. As the newly appointed Mrs. Julian, I couldn't escape either. Julian was tied up with several tycoons discussing the global economic situation. I, disliking social obligations, slipped away to a secluded couch on the terrace for some fresh air and to admire the city's night view. Just as I was wondering if I could sneak off to the dessert section early, a sweet yet somewhat sharp female voice suddenly came from behind me. Well, isn't that Mrs. Julian? How lovely, hiding here all by yourself. I turned around. It was Ms. Veronica, the heiress of the Lynn, who reportedly had a massive crush on Julian and was Mrs. Sarah's preferred choice for a daughter-in-law. She walked over gracefully in a limited edition gown, accompanied by 2 follower socialites, her eyes scanning me from head to toe like an X-ray. Her gaze finally rested on the limited edition handbag, which Julian bought, that I had casually placed on the couch, and she scoffed, Mr. Julian is truly thoughtful to his wife, he even managed to get this bag, which is sold out worldwide. However, she changed her tone, with undisguised malice. I heard Mrs. J. Julian managed to marry into the Jiang family by resorting to public desperation and throwing a tantrum at a business summit? Well, without such undignified tactics, given the Shin family's current situation, how could she possibly be worthy of Mr. Julian? Chloe, who was now my personal assistant and bodyguard, flushed with anger and tried to step forward to argue. I pulled her back. Oh, here it comes, Julian's underhanded tactics. It's starting already? Such a low level? Poor rating. I wiggled my ear, feigning surprise. Ms. Veronica, you're quite well informed, aren't you? But that version is a bit outdated. The latest version is that I not only threw a tantrum but also performed an impromptu act of opening a red wine bottle with my bare hands and cracking walnuts with my chest. Ahem, cracking walnuts. Mr. Julian was so deeply impressed by my talent that he cried and begged Mr. Thompson to be our witness. Don't believe me? Go ask around. Veronica's face turned green then white, choked by my words. You're talking nonsense. Shameless. Shameless? I blinked. How much does that cost per pound? Can it be exchanged for black truffle cake? She had probably never encountered someone like me. Her fingers trembled with anger as she pointed at me. Don't get too smug. Don't think you're secure just because you married in. Julian is only intrigued for now. He'll see through your true colors sooner or later. You. She didn't finish her sentence. Her gaze suddenly went past me to something behind me, and the anger on her face instantly transformed into a look of hurt and near tears. Her quick change of expression was astonishing. Julian. Her voice was soft enough to wring water from. I didn't even need to turn around to know who had arrived. Sure enough, Julian's calm voice sounded behind me. Ms. Veronica, what are you and my wife discussing so excitedly? Veronica immediately jumped in, tears instantly welling up. Julian, I was just trying to be kind and say hello to Mrs. Julian, but she insulted me, and said I was a toad trying to eat swan meat. She sniffled and sobbed, unable to continue, looking utterly wronged. I silently rolled my eyes. The owes you an Oscar. Julian walked to my side and naturally put his arm around my waist. He looked at Veronica, his tone still gentle but with an underlying distance. Is that so? My wife has a straightforward personality, and if she has caused any offense, I apologize on her behalf, Ms. Veronica. A hint of triumph just appeared on Veronica's face, then continued slowly. However, to my knowledge, while my wife's words can occasionally be a bit wild, she never intentionally provokes trouble. On the other hand, Ms. Veronica. He paused, his gaze sweeping over Veronica's instantly rigid face, his voice subtly cooling. The terrace offers an open view, so why did Ms. Veronica choose this secluded spot to say hello? And why did you specifically send the waitstaff away? Veronica's face turned completely white. I didn't. Julian, however, didn't look at her again. He lowered his head and asked me, his voice so tender it could melt, my wife, were you startled just now? I immediately went into full dramatic mode, clutching my chest and leaning into his arms, feigning fragility. Honey, you finally came. You scared me to death. Ms. Veronica was so fierce just now, she even wanted to push me off the terrace. Boo-hoo-hoo. Veronica, you're slandering me. I didn't. This terrace has a railing. Julian gently patted my back, comforting me. There, don't be afraid, your husband is here. He looked up at Veronica, his eyes now truly cold. Ms. Veronica, it seems rather windy out here. It's easy to get dizzy and hallucinate. Perhaps you should return to the main hall soon, lest you compromise the dignity of the Lynn. This was a very severe warning. Veronica's eyes were completely red. She glared at me fiercely, stomped her foot, and then, with her friends, fled into SAR. I immediately sprang out of his arms, rubbing the goosebumps on my arms. Ugh, that was so cheesy. Julian chuckled softly, reaching up to smooth my hair, which had been ruffled. My wife, you were a bit dramatic. Against people like her, effectiveness is all that matters, I snorted, remembering his earlier comment about pushing her off the terrace, a shiver running down my spine. But seriously, was she actually planning to do something just now? Julian's gaze swept over the sturdy glass railing, his eyes darkening slightly. She wouldn't dare lay a hand on you directly. However, if you, my wife, had truly gotten into an argument with her, accidentally sprained an ankle, or mistakenly had wine spilled on you, leading to public embarrassment, it would harm your reputation and image. She, on the other hand, could play the innocent party. She's certainly capable of that kind of calculation. A chill ran down my spine. These people's minds are truly twisted with deceit. So, he looked at me, a slight curve to his lips. My wife, do you understand now why I gave you that car and card? I instinctively touched the car key and black card in my handbag, realizing for the first time how practical they truly were. Alright, I get it, I said, annoyed. I'll make sure to bring them every time I go out from now on. Happy now? He nodded with satisfaction. Good girl, my foot. Just as I was about to retort, he suddenly leaned in, whispering in my ear, his warm breath brushing my lobe. Your husband, did a good job protecting you just now. Shouldn't my wife show her appreciation? That PPT. Here we go again. I glared at him. My merits cancel out my demerits. I played along with your act just now, so we're even. He straightened up, sighing regretfully. My wife, you certainly are shrewd with your calculations. The dazzling city lights reflected in his smiling eyes, shimmering with soft, fragmented light. My heart inconveniently quickened. By 2 beats again. I quickly turned my face away, huffing, "Come on, let's go. I'm starving. Time for dessert." Though my words were dismissive, my hand subconsciously tightened its grip on the car key in my bag. It seemed, marrying this calculating, scheming old fox wasn't such a bad deal after all. At least, there'd be plenty of dessert. Julian had saved me from a calamity. Just as the reception ended and we were about to head to the underground parking garage to get the car, the incident didn't happen too quickly, but it was certainly alarming. We had just reached my custom-made armored car, and the driver was about to open the back door when Julian suddenly extended his hand to stop him. He frowned slightly, his sharp gaze sweeping over the car, lingering for a few extra seconds, especially at the connection point between the chassis and the door. Wait, his voice was deep, carrying an undeniable seriousness. Before I could react, he had already signaled Ryan to summon the accompanying head of security. 2 bodyguards, dressed in black suits and wearing communication headsets, immediately stepped forward. Holding instruments I didn't recognize, they began a quick inspection around the vehicle. In less than a minute, one bodyguard looked up, his expression grave. "Mr. Julian, a miniature, unauthorized device has been installed on the right rear car door hinge. It's magnetic and appears to be remotely triggered." My mind buzzed, then went completely blank in an instant, my hands and feet turning icy cold. Unauthorized device. Remotely triggered. It sounded like, "Can it be handled?" Julian's voice remained calm, but the arm wrapped around my waist tightened slightly. "Yes, it will take a few minutes to remove, but to ensure absolute safety, we recommend you and your wife switch to the backup vehicle immediately. Let's go." Julian didn't hesitate for a second. He immediately pulled me close, and under the tight escort of several bodyguards, we quickly headed towards another unassuming black sedan not far away. It wasn't until we were inside the car, the door closing with a thud, and the vehicle smoothly exited the underground parking garage and merged into traffic, that I felt my heartbeat slowly return to my chest. Still, my limbs felt weak, and cold sweat had drenched my back. Just now. If it hadn't been for Julian. I didn't even dare to think further. Julian? My voice was trembling uncontrollably. I instinctively grabbed his arm, seeking some sense of reality. "It's all right now," he said, turning his hand to grasp mine. His palm was warm and dry, offering a comforting strength. "It was just a cheap trick, mostly meant to scare. Causing serious harm wouldn't have been easy." His voice came softly by my ear, as calm as ever, just a little deeper than usual. "Who are you kidding? They installed that thing. How did you find it?" My voice was still trembling. "Instinct," he answered briefly, his fingers gently caressing the back of my hand. There was a very subtle inconsistency in the dust patterns on the car body. Also, when Veronica left the reception earlier, the look she gave you wasn't quite right. My heart pounded as if it would leap from my throat, and a wave of belated fear washed over me. It wasn't until I returned to the mansion, sitting on the familiar living room couch, cradling the warm milk Chloe handed me, that I truly felt alive again. Julian was handling the aftermath, while Ryan quietly reported the preliminary investigation results beside him. The preliminary assessment indicates that Veronica, fueled by jealousy, used her ne'er-do-well cousin to hire some local thugs. The goal was to make you panic and embarrass yourself in public, or to create a small accident. Listening, a cold shiver ran down my spine. Just because of her unrequited jealousy? She could disregard other people's safety? After listening, Julian's expression remained calm. He simply said to Ryan, "Handle it according to the law and pursue it to the end. Furthermore, appropriately leak the relevant evidence to Mr. Andrew. Tell him I expect to see a satisfactory resolution." His tone was light, yet carried an undeniable chill. Ryan immediately understood. I knew the Lynn would likely pay a significant price for this. Veronica's father, Mr. Andrew, probably felt like strangling her himself. That night, I had a nightmare. I dreamed the car door exploded right in front of me. I woke up covered in cold sweat. A pair of warm arms immediately wrapped around me, and Julian's deep voice resonated in the darkness. Had a nightmare? I snuggled deeper into his embrace, drawing comfort from his reassuring cedar scent, and mumbled a soft hum. The room fell silent. After a long moment, I heard him say very softly, "It won't happen again." I looked up at him abruptly. In the darkness, I could only make out the distinct line of his jaw. His gaze was serious, not like he was joking. "I promise," he added, his voice soft yet carrying a heavy weight. My heart suddenly skipped a beat. Moonlight filtered through a gap in the curtains, falling upon his peaceful sleeping face, softening the calculating edges that usually defined him. In that moment, I suddenly realized with clarity that this man, calculating, scheming, and full of tricks, had truly placed me at the forefront of his heart, even above himself. Things like PPTs and cakes suddenly didn't seem so important anymore. I sniffled, snuggling back into his embrace, and mumbled, "Enough talk. Go find all those behind this right away. Otherwise, I won't be able to sleep." He chuckled softly, his chest vibrating, and tightened his arms around me. "All right, anything for my wife." Within 2 days, news spread from the Lynn that Veronica had been personally escorted by her father to a sanatorium abroad, known for its strict management, for rest, with no definite return date. At the same time, to appease Julian's anger, the Lynn voluntarily ceded 2 highly profitable cooperation projects to the Jiang, and its stock price also took a hit. Listening to the news Chloe had gathered, I couldn't quite describe the feeling in my heart. It was somewhat satisfying, yet also strangely hollow. I had always thought that as a couch potato, I just needed to cling to Julian, my powerful benefactor, and live off him without a care. But one event after another made me realize that merely coasting along wouldn't cut it. Danger wouldn't just bypass me because I was a couch potato. In fact, appearing easy to bully might make me an easier target. I couldn't always hide behind Julian, letting him shield me from every storm. At the very least, I needed to know where the wind came from and how strong the rain would be. That evening, I carried my laptop and slipped into Julian's study. He was on a video conference call, speaking in business jargon I didn't understand. I quietly sat on the nearby couch, not disturbing him. Only after he ended his meeting and closed his laptop did he look at me, a brow slightly raised. "What wisdom do you bring today, my wife? Is the new PPT ready?" I shook my head and turned my laptop screen toward him. It displayed pages I'd searched on business fundamentals, financial management, and even some basic self-defense techniques. "Julian," I said, looking at him with an unprecedented seriousness, "teach me." He clearly paused, taken aback. "Teach you what?" "Teach me how to read financial reports, how to identify business risks, how to protect myself when you're not around." I paused, then added, "At least, not to hold you back." Julian watched me silently, a swell of emotions in his deep eyes, surprise, scrutiny, finally transforming into a profound, warm admiration. He rose, walked over to me, and leaned down, bracing his hands on the couch armrests, encircling me between himself and the couch. "Why the sudden interest in learning all this?" he asked, his voice low. "I don't want to always be protected by you." I met his gaze, not shying away for once. "While being protected by you isn't bad. But I don't want to be a useless lump who only causes trouble and then waits for you to clean up the mess." He chuckled softly, pressing his forehead against mine, nose brushing nose. "My wife, how could you be a useless lump?" His voice was laced with amusement. "You are my lucky charm." "Oh, stop it." I pushed him away, my face warm. "Just say whether you'll teach me or not." "I will," he said, straightening up, his answer decisive, his eyes shining brilliantly. "If my wife wants to learn, your husband, will teach you everything I know." And so, my couch potato comeback plan officially began. Julian was an extremely strict teacher, but he was also incredibly patient. From the 3 basic financial statements to business model analysis, then to common business pitfalls and compliance risks. I found it challenging. After all, my life motto used to be, "If you can lie down, don't sit." But perhaps driven by a surge of determination, or perhaps not wanting to experience that powerless fear again, I actually persevered. Occasionally, David would visit. Hearing and me discuss business matters, his eyes nearly popped out. He'd grab Sarah's hand, tears streaming down his face, exclaiming, "Our daughter. She's finally wised up?" Sarah, meanwhile, would look at Julian, her eyes full of gratitude, a testament to her husband's guidance. Me. Besides business knowledge, Julian also arranged a combat instructor for me. Though I lacked stamina and would get winded after just a few moves, I at least learned some practical self-defense techniques. and more importantly, crisis awareness. In this process, I discovered that I wasn't as useless as I'd imagined. I was fairly sensitive to numbers and could quickly grasp some business logic. Before, I had just been too lazy to use my brain. Julian looked at a simple competitive analysis report I had prepared and nodded. Clear thinking, you've grasped the key points. My wife, you truly are talented. I said, stop flattering me, but secretly, I felt a little smug. It seemed, solving problems with my own mind, even just a little, brought more satisfaction than simply indulging in food and drink. An opportunity soon arose. A major overseas acquisition project for the Jiang ran into trouble at the last minute. The opposing company suddenly raised its price, and a competitor intervened, spreading rumors detrimental to the Jiang, hindering the project's progress and causing fluctuations in its stock price. Julian had been working overtime for several days straight, a rare hint of fatigue on his face. I looked at the mountain of documents piled on his desk, and my absurd couch potato soul screamed, what's it to me? But another career soul, just budding, was stirring within me. I organized the information I'd been researching over the past few days about the rival company, Kishuan, into a few pages and placed them on Julian's desk. Ahem, I said casually, I was just browsing, and I noticed that a subsidiary Kishuan acquired last year seems to have some accounting issues. They seem particularly fond of business models that look highly profitable but have very poor cash flow. And their founder appears to have cashed out a significant amount of money in the secondary market recently. Julian picked up the papers and quickly scanned them, his gaze shifting from casual indifference to focused attention, finally gleaming with a sharp intensity. He looked up at me, his eyes complex. You just happened to stumble upon this? I feigned composure. Yeah, I was just bored anyway. Maybe it could be useful? He didn't speak, but picked up the internal phone and quickly gave instructions. Immediately re-examine Kishuan and its affiliated companies in depth, especially the financial status and cash flow of Xuanjia, which they acquired last year. Pay close attention to the founder's equity changes over the past 6 months. Putting down the phone, he looked at me, a genuine smile of admiration and pride curving his lips. My wife, you've made a significant contribution. What followed was like pushing over the first domino. Following the lead I provided, the Zhang's investigation team quickly uncovered substantive evidence of Kishuan's financial fraud, as well as indications that its founder was preparing for cashing out and exiting. Julian immediately released the evidence, causing Kishuan's stock price to crash and its credibility to be ruined. Naturally, they were no longer able to compete with the Jiang for the acquisition project. At the same time, Julian seized this opportunity not only to successfully complete the acquisition at a lower price but also to acquire several high-quality business segments from Kishuan, further expanding the Jiang's footprint. A crisis, instead, became an opportunity for the Jiang to ascend to a new level. At the celebration banquet, Julian, uncharacteristically, had a few extra drinks. Back at the mansion, he leaned against the couch, holding my hand, his eyes shimmering with a slight tipsiness and clear affection. Mia, he called my name, his voice hoarse, do you know? You're more than just my lucky charm. He leaned closer, his breath carrying the scent of wine. You're also my shield. My heart felt as if something had suddenly struck it, feeling both soft and full. I looked at him, at this man who had calculated against me from the start, yet protected me completely, and now even guided my growth. All his tactics, all his scheming, in this moment, transformed into the most touching declarations of love. I leaned in and initiated a kiss, capturing his thin lips, which usually spoke irritating words but were now exceptionally soft. Julian, I whispered against his lips, the PPT, consider it excused. He paused, surprised, then his eyes widened with immense delight and laughter, deepening the kiss. But I head him back slightly, feigning my last bit of authority. If you ever dare to wrong me, I'll use everything you taught me to bring down your company. He chuckled softly, his chest vibrating as he held me tightly in his arms. I wouldn't dare, he said, his voice filled with pleasure and certainty. I, your husband, am completely smitten with you for life. 1 year later, Mr. Julian's reputation for being henpecked had spread throughout the entire circle, just as widely as his business achievements. According to a certain assistant, who wished to remain anonymous, he once personally witnessed Mr. Julian being confronted by his wife, who slammed a market analysis report, more impressive than anything a professional agency could produce, onto his desk, demanding to know why a certain investment decision hadn't been reported to her in advance. Servants at the Jiang mansion also revealed that when his wife occasionally got angry, she would still make Mr. Julian sleep in the study. But almost every time, before midnight, Mr. Julian would inevitably find various excuses to sneak back into the master bedroom, clutching his pillow. After too many times, his wife simply replaced the blanket on the study couch with a particularly narrow one. Mr. Julian complained that it covered his shoulders but not his legs. As for the PPT, Mr. Julian once privately lamented to his father-in-law, Mr. David, who had finally made his couch potato comeback and whose business was thriving with the Jiang's help. "Well, a man still needs a little secret savings." Mr. David heartily agreed. Then, the very next day, someone saw Mr. David being dragged by the ear by his wife, being interrogated about whether he was hiding a secret stash. Upon hearing this, Mr. Julian remained silent for a long time. That very evening, he voluntarily handed over all his supplementary cards, though I already knew the primary card was with him, and its limit was truly infinite, along with a detailed personal asset list. Of course, these were all common topics of conversation among business circles. The truth was, Mrs. Julian, Mia, still loved desserts and lounging around. And under her supervision, Mr. Julian, while expanding his business empire, also paid more attention to household democracy and shared decision-making. As for Mr. Julian, he remained calculating, scheming, and full of tricks, but all his machinations clearly bypassed the woman in his arms, at times a couch potato, at times sharp and brilliant, and always a delightful surprise to him. After all, turning tactics into mutual affection is the most sophisticated tactic of all, isn't it?